Hi, I'm Nicola Ranson, and I'm reading an abbreviated form of my story, Casablanca Asylum. And my terrible idea was hitching a ride to Morocco. My story begins in a Casablanca asylum. I was 19, and the men in the 2 rows of metal beds stared ravenously at me and my slightly younger cousin Kate, whose golden red hair was catnip to males. When I saw how many of the men were masturbating, I clamped my mouth shut to keep the vomit inside. We were there to find Kurt, one of the 3 Germans we were traveling with, since we'd hitched a ride in their VW bus. Things had begun to go wrong a couple of weeks earlier when Kurt woke me up, yelling, "Get out! Get out! The beach is going to explode! You must get out of there!" Enraged at my lack of response, Kurt grabbed my sleeping bag and pulled me onto the roadside. Jolted awake, I screamed for help. This angered him further, and he hit me on the head, repeatedly. Help appeared as the car moved towards us. I clung to my sleeping bag as Kurt dragged me along the side of the road. "Au secours!" I cried out, and Kurt thwacked me again. "Help!" he shouted. The car slowed. The couple inside took one look at us, then sped up. Incensed, Kurt let go of me, ran off to the car, and out of sight. What a relief to have him gone. Our small group, now dressed, tried to make sense of it all. Half an hour later, Kurt wandered back. Soon afterwards, the police arrived with a paddy wagon. They bundled Kurt into the back, and my alarm escalated to horror when they grabbed my arms and threw me in too. I was scared to be locked inside with Kurt, but he was subdued, sunk into his inner world. "What am I here for?" I asked at the police station in my best high school French. "That car that drove by you, that was the police inspector and his pregnant wife. He's charging the 2 of you with attempting to murder his unborn child." By late afternoon, at perhaps the 3rd hearing in the 3rd government building, I made the same argument I'd been making all day. "Why did you dirty hippies frighten a pregnant woman?" asked the judge. "My friend was yelling because he thought the beach was going to explode. He was trying to save me." "He's obviously high on drugs." "No, monsieur, it's not drugs. I think he's crazy." "What are you doing bringing crazy people into Morocco, you filthy kids who swim naked in our sea?" "Monsieur, he wasn't crazy until we got here." Eventually they dropped the charges against me, but I stayed to speak up for Kurt until the judge threw up his hands and told us to get out of there, which solved one problem, but what to do about Kurt? A few days later, Kurt grew more agitated. He started to remove items from the VW bus and strew them around the campsite. Kate and I returned from a walk to find clothes from our backpacks flapping from a tree. "He's getting really weird," said Christian. "Says he has to take the bus apart." By the time we went to sleep, fully dressed, Kurt had removed the car seats. Around 2 a.m., he started yelling, as he ransacked the inside of his bus, searching for something. "There is the axe. I need the axe." "Why do you need the axe? It's time to sleep, Kurt." Kurt Kate knew where we'd hidden it. His reply was loud and urgent. "I have to kill someone tonight." A cold stream of terror doused me. I made ready to slowly back away like you do with a bear. We were too slow. Kurt pounced on us and grabbed a fistful of Kate's hair. I jumped at him and pounded his arm. "Let her go! Let her go!" Surprisingly, he did. He seemed satisfied with a clump of golden hair in his hand. "I will burn this and make babies." He clambered to the roof of the VW and flicked his lighter. Neighboring campers surrounded our site, armed with sticks and flashlights. "He's not an animal in the zoo," hissed Kate. "Kurt, don't be scared." He responded with an aggressive roar. When the police arrived at dawn, Kurt was still on the roof. As they took him away, he smiled and waved goodbye. "We'll call and let you know which hospital," they told us. They never did. After searching the hospitals, we found him in the asylum several days later. It was years before I understood the meaning of a psychotic break. In retrospect, Kurt's behavior was a classic manic episode, possibly triggered by drugs. His consulate did get him back home, and his friends flew away, which left Kate and me in Morocco without a ride. And if you would like to know what happened next, this was the beginning of our adventures. My memoir, A Slice of Orange, is being released in the fall by Touchpoint Press. And if you don't have a bookmark, come and get one later and sign up for social media and my newsletter, and I'll keep you informed.
Good afternoon, everyone. Can you all hear me? So my name is Janell Strube, and I'm going to be reading from my piece of memoir, Taking My Blonde Daughter to a Black Lives Matter Rally. I made us late. The rally started at 3 p.m., and I had told my 24-year-old daughter I would be sure to stop work in time to go. But now it was 5 p.m., and I was just getting ready. For months, I had been tracking the names of Black Lives Lost. I believed in the protest, believed I needed to do something, but was afraid of the consequences. Would I feel safe walking my dog after this? Would people be comfortable around me? Somehow, I knew there would be no going back. I checked my parents in the mirror. Black sweater, black skirt, straight hair in a ponytail, brown skin light enough after months of pandemic isolation to appear almost white. My heart began to pound. Taking a deep breath, I called to my daughter, and we left the house. The sidewalks of downtown San Juan Capistrano were empty. Then we passed a group of Hispanic young men heading back. The rally was over, they told us, but some people were still protesting in the park. We continued, but inside I was relieved. All blacks who protest are terrorists. It was the voice in my head, the one that had been there since I was 5 years old, when we went for a Sunday afternoon drive to Watts, so my mother could see where the riots happened. It was the first time I heard the phrase, if they don't like it, they should just go back where they came from. At the intersection of Ortega Highway and El Camino Real, we faced a surreal standoff. On the Mission San Juan Capistrano side, next to the adobe wall built in 1776, 4 policemen in riot gear, looking like Marines ready to clear Aleppo, pointed their rifles at three Hispanic teenage girls standing on the opposite corner. The teenagers held up a hand-lettered sign. One of the girls with wavy black hair that fell to her waist was speaking through a bullhorn. You men should be ashamed, I thought. These protesters are just children. But the girl holding the bullhorn was undeterred. The light changed and my daughter and I stepped out into the crosswalk. The guns were now aimed at our backs. Black Lives Matter, the girl with the bullhorn said to me. Hope stirred in my heart. Yes, our lives do matter, I said. Immediately, my daughter was offended. That's not what this is about, Janell, she said. She took me to say, all lives matter. I was agreeing with her, I said, thanking her even. She won't appreciate the nuance, my daughter said under her breath as we walked past. There were perhaps 10 people under the shade trees in the park, but not a single black person, nor a person who looked like an organizer to answer questions. We headed back home. When we passed the intersection, empty now. Anger replaced the fear that had made me too late for the rally. Anger that, once again, I was on the outside. If I go to a Black Lives Matter rally, from either side, I am an inauthentic protester. The young girl on the corner saw a brunette, middle-aged woman walking her blonde daughter to a Black Lives Matter rally and felt she needed to tell me that Black Lives Matter. Inside, I was thinking about the baby who was put up for adoption because her father was black. Me. My life had not mattered at the point at which I was the most vulnerable. I am the blending of two worlds that, based on skin color, our society has chosen to divide forever. Long ago, I wrote a poem in French that began, I am not black, I am not white, I don't want to be gray, the shadow of two worlds that will never come together again. When I was 3, I learned that I was the mulatto child that the Strubes had adopted. It was said every time I was introduced to people, to the point that the pugnacious toddler of the earliest photos of me turned into a shy and tearful girl who hid when meeting people. To this day, I have to force down this anxiety when I meet new people. The Encyclopedia Britannica taught me about being mulatto. We had a version from the 1930s, musty, with yellowed pages and no colored pictures. Under mulatto, there was a whole section about mulattoes, quadroons, octoroons, complete with woodcut drawings of black people, showing the variations in skin color, represented by more or fewer dots, and hair twisted in short spikes. There were more names after octoroon, but I don't recall them now. I have spent my whole life being impacted by race. It is why I was adopted and grew up in a white household. It is why, when children at school asked what color I was, I would say that I was silver. It is why my boyfriend was not allowed to date me, and why I made sure to marry a white man and have an even whiter child. Being light-skinned means that I am bombarded with racism that swirls like radiation in the atmosphere. People assume who you are, or forget who you are, or do not care. I must always be on my guard, and sometimes it is hard to respond with grace and kindness. I learned every negative stereotype at the dinner table from my parents' friends. Whenever I would say how these things hurt me, my mother would say, "You're not that black." But the fear of being thought dumb, stupid, lazy, or fat made me work hard to be perfect, intelligent, hardworking, and thin. I never wanted anyone to lay fault on me for the color of my skin. We returned from the non-rally rally, and I still didn't know what I could do to protest. But then, one recent evening, my daughter came home from work with a story to tell. An older white gentleman had followed a young man into Staples and yelled at him for driving recklessly in the parking lot. The brown-haired young man was wearing a rash guard and board shorts. The old man said, "Take your brown skin back to where you belong." Everyone thought he was going to attack the young man. My daughter stepped between the two and separated them, and the blonde cashier said, "Sir, we don't accept racist speech in here." The man asked the cashier if she was a fucking liberal, and she replied that she was just a human. The surfer did not understand. He was white, tanned from time spent at the beach, but white. I am proud of my daughter and the cashier for doing the right thing, but inside I am terrified. What if the cops had been called on this brown boy? I realized I had not protected my daughter from anything, but she had the courage to step into a dangerous situation. Growing up, my protection lay in retreat. I was a child who had had to learn to survive alone. A radio commentator said racism has been hiding in plain sight. It has never been hidden to me. Only now there are cameras to expose it and people who will not accept it. But something exposed is something once hidden, and it is time for me